I'm going to go to good morning. This is the Q&A session for this morning. Steve, hopefully you can be there, mate. Good morning, Steve.
Hi guys, how you doing?
I'm all right. You, mate? You all right?
Yeah, not bad, not bad.
So we didn't get to your question in time on the last session, but you all right just to ask again? You had few connection issues at the start, though.
Yeah, I've just I didn't hear all of it, unfortunately. I'll have to listen back sometime. But it looked like you were going through certain things to consider when planning a session.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering, is there any one thing that you would say should be like a top priority, number one, in all?
How old are the players you work with?
So it varies. I'm thinking more sort of foundation phase. You know, is there one thing that you would say should be, you know, like a non-negotiable, you know, top of the list every time?
Yeah, good question. I would say really understanding or thinking about what's important to the players or the kids. Because if you don't consider that, then what you're trying to do and what they want to do at different places. So in terms of planning, I would say understanding more about them and knowing what they're interested in. So for example, I would imagine lots of the kids in your group probably like playing the game, like kind of doing that part of it. So maybe it's doing practices that you are confident in delivering, but trying to kind of build it around things that the kids are interested in. So if they like shooting, for example, deliver some shooting games, but then try and kind of weave in the bits of coaching that you want to do within that. So they're doing the stuff that really interests them, but then you're able to deliver the things that you want to help them get better at. So interest of the kids, I'd say that's probably right up there as being a really important thing. And then just making sure, if you like, that the practice of the game that you design does all the things that you want it to do. So if you've designed a practice that's about dribbling forwards, for example, does that game give every player the opportunity to get lots of opportunity to dribble forwards throughout it? Or what changes might you have to make throughout the game to give everybody or the right people more opportunities to do that? So yeah, practice design is a really interesting one because there's so many different things to consider. But I guess as coaches, we've got lots of things in our toolbox that could help that process. So we've got some drills, right, and we've got that block practice, which gets a bad name, right? But actually there is some value in doing that, almost having a skill zone, having a chance for players to have a short and sweet opportunity to practice some things kind of with a bit of repetition. Small-sided games, we know about them, we know what they're good for. The trade-off for a small-sided game is you don't ever get very good at playing the game. You get a balance there. There could be some tactical warfare. So almost like I said earlier, you set it up so there's a scenario that the players have to play out. Just playing the game, just letting them play. If you play 7v7, just letting them play 7v7 for a while. There's doing some metacognition. So that was the things I was talking about, where you've got the pauses and the replays. So I guess if you almost did a brainstorm about all the different things you do in training, all the different types of practice you could put on, I think then you could probably think, right, I want to help the players get better at their individual possession tonight. So this game here and this approach to a game here are the ones which are going to do it best for me today. And think about it like that, rather than having to come up with a new drill like every week.
Would you, in terms of, I'm just thinking in terms of this, you know, this whole idea around the child-centric approach.
Yeah.
And then obviously the coach trying to get across his, you know, whatever he's hoping to get out of the session.
Yeah.
Out of the two, is there one you would say, you know, should take priority or is more important?
I wouldn't say they're completely separate. making practices centered around the players is paramount. It really has to be. And I guess as coaches, we are other-centered. That's why we're doing this. That's why we're on the call, because we're thinking about the experience of the kids that we work with. So I guess trying to put them at the front and center of everything that you do is really important. So it's less coach-led and more player-led. I would say that that's really important. But I wouldn't necessarily say that's any different if you're working with the under-14s, the under-16s, because actually they're coming to training because they want to experience some certain things, and maybe a great question to ask when you get back on the grass with the kids is like, how would you like to learn tonight? So you've got to be prepared as a coach to be a bit flexible with that, and almost have a couple of things in mind about what you might do. But how would you like to learn tonight? Well, what do you think? What things might they say back to you if you ask them that?
Cool. Steve.
Cool. Cheers, guys.
Oh, cheers, mate. Thanks again. Good to see you. Going to Elliot now. He's got his hands up again, waiting patiently. Hi, Elliot.
Hi guys, you alright?
I'm alright, mate. You okay?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Good to see you again.
It's kind of a suggestion based on the recent discussion, and then kind of leads on to a question for Tom. So I was going to say, I think it was Sonny was asking about, is it okay to play a game and things like that. There's a really good webinar with Pete Sturgis. I don't know if you've seen it, and the head of the Belgian FA. I listened to it yesterday, and it pretty much, if for anyone in here that coaches in the foundation phase, I urge you listen to it. They basically say that where everyone tries to rush towards the adult game too quickly, so trying to make it look like the adult game with passing or this sort of thing, all these drills, when really an under-7 player basically needs maybe a 1v1 or a 2v2, and that's how they learn, and then you sort of build it up from there. First of all, I'd say anyone in here that coaches that age group, listen to that. And about the play, it kind of links to I was saying, do you think that we, as adults, we look at it from our point of view and we want it to look like match of the day, when really, like you've been saying, the kids don't need to learn how to pass the ball 5 times before they score. They just need to learn how to play in a 2v2 or a 1v1 and then build it up. Just wondering what your thoughts are on that.
Elliot, what do you think?
Well, I'm very much in the agreement with Pete Sturgis and this Chris, because they've completely changed it in Belgium so that the under-7s basically play 2v2 and that's it. And in this country, I know everyone will be like, what? That doesn't look like the game, but is that where we should be going? Because if a kid plays in a 2v2, you don't need to teach him how to pass. The 2v1, he's got 2 options, he dribble or passes. The game will dictate whether he dribbles or passes anyway. You don't necessarily need to tell them that, and they're going to get more touches of the ball, more decisions, because they're only playing 2v2. Just wonder what your thoughts are based on, because everything, your presentation was, I think, amazing, and if you tie your presentation in with that theory, it kind of makes perfect sense. So I was just wondering what your thoughts are on that.
So I'll give you a bit of background, Elliot. I mentioned at the start that I'm doing a master's in education. So year 1 of the master's, the tutor's Pete Sturgis. We're on the same page there.
Okay.
I've worked with Pete for many years, and many coaches, he's almost like that's exactly where youth coaching should be. He's such a role model, isn't he, in terms of the way he approaches coaching and makes it about the kids. And yeah, I think if you look at it from a perspective of, well, what are the benefits of playing 2v2, 3v3 football rather than something bigger than that? And you said it yourself, more decisions, more time on the ball, more opportunity to play, and almost you get the same situations occur. It's almost because you've got smaller teams, it's sped up. You almost amplify the amount of times that happens. And it's absolutely right. If you're playing 2v2, your choices are slightly smaller than if you're playing 7v7. And if you're playing a 7v7 game, actually you'll notice that children who are probably a little bit more inexperienced and need some help from you, their decision making speed goes down because there's so many decisions to make, and they end up losing possession, and then all the knock-on effect of that, if that keeps happening. So by making it smaller, turning up, if you think about it like a DJ in his set, and he's got a volume control and things, the thing to turn up for kids is choice. Give them loads of choice about what they can do in this moment in time in the game. If you dial down choice, you lose interest, you lose their self-determination. But give them more than that, and they will be engaged, excited, and they will learn. They will acquire the skills they need to get better at the game.
Yeah, that's pretty much perfect. And also, I listened to, I'm sure you've heard of him, Michael Bill. He's also a very good youth coach developer. I think he's worked at Chelsea, Liverpool.
Okay.
He's now at Rangers, and he said that basically, even from his point of view, even from grassroots up to first team, if you really break football down, it basically is 1v1, 2v1 situations, 3v2s, but just going on all the time over the pitch. So you might have a 3v2 on the right-hand side. So they play a 3v2, then they switch the play to make a 1v1. So if you actually break the game down, it basically is those situations over and over again. So if they can master that, they don't necessarily need to know where they are on the pitch, but if they can master how to do a 2v1 situation, they might then be able to translate that to the game. Because I think people think, oh, because it's 2v2, that's not realistic. But if you actually break it down and watch a game of football, it is, because you will have how many times do you get a 2v1 situation in an under-7s game? It happens all the time because you lose the ball and you break and it's a 2v1. So if they know how to deal with a 2v1 situation, it doesn't matter whether they play 5v5, all the kids are going to see is that 2v1 picture, which they've done over and over again.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
It's just really interesting how...
Yeah, you're dead right. And I think when you, I've noticed yesterday, I don't know about you, but I'm missing football massively. So Sky Sports were doing like Sky Sports Retro yesterday and playing lots of classic games. And I was watching a couple of them, not knowing what the result was, and it felt like I was watching a live football. But if you get the chance to just sit and watch, and then look at it with that filter, so you're watching the game through the eyes of, I'm just looking for 1v1s and 2v1s, and almost listed how many you saw and what the success was, and how the players reacted when they got it right, got it wrong, what types of decisions did they have to make. You'd almost come out with, right, okay, I've got so much information here now that helps inform the way I should coach. And if training in the game looks really different, then we're not preparing the players right. So I think everything you said, Elliot, is absolutely right. And it sounds like the kids that you coach will get a really good experience from that, because you're giving them lots of the right environment to go and get better at what they're doing already.
No, thanks, Tom. No, it's always nice to have more senior people kind of on the same page as you, because as coaches you always get quite insecure. Am I doing this right? Is this the right thing? So it's good to get someone like yourself to sort of support that too. So
well, I wouldn't call myself more senior than you, Elliot. I'd just say that we're all at different points on the journey, and that goes for us as coaches, but also for the players in our groups. So think about, if you think about the webinar this morning, but also think about the last coaching session that you ran. As a coach, you're almost picking kids up at different bus stops along the way, and you end up dropping them off at different bus stops. So if you can help them on their journey from point A to point C today, and then point C to point D next week, then that's really powerful. We're just at different points on the journey, that's all.
Yeah, cheers, Tom. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Elliot, mate. Good questions again. And David's put on there, I sometimes reflect on the session and worry that I haven't spent enough time individually helping all the players. It's better to focus on 4 or 5 players one week and then switch different players the next week rather than spreading yourself too thinly. It's getting tricky, that balance of engagement. It's getting that balance of engagement that is tricky sometimes. David, hopefully you're able to speak. Morning, David.
Morning, how you doing?
Morning, David.
All right, how are you?
Yeah, good. Finally got my audio working.
Good to speak to you, mate. I know Sam's come back to you. We'll get Sam involved in it, but I suppose just for everyone else's point of view, if I just elaborate a little bit more.
Yeah, so it's just so I do 2 age groups. I do under 11s and under 14s, and just sometimes you sort of look back on the session and think, I haven't spent that much time with so and so, and did I spend too much time with another sort of player, and it's just that kind of what's sort of some tips and advice in terms of that approach, because I just find sometimes you sort of spread yourself too thinly, and you're also dealing with everything else that's going on with the session. It's just having that sort of focused time with individuals, and sort of planning that out across a period of time rather than just one individual session.
Yeah, I think David, you probably answered your own question there in the last sentence. But I mean, people who are brilliant at doing this kind of stuff are teachers, right? They have classes of 30 kids and they're able to differentiate and set appropriate challenges and move everybody on at a pace that's appropriate for them. So I would say speak to a teacher, ask them what they do and what would be their top tips, because they're really good at this stuff. And they deal with it every single day. And I guess the other thing, I think, I agree, it's really hard, isn't it, to be able to have like 14 kids in a group and to be able to have a impact on every single one on an individual level every single week. So think about it maybe more in the medium to long term. Over the course of the season, this is the type of impact I want to have on this player, this player, this player. And maybe pick 3. I think 3 is a nice number to work with. But if you design a really good practice or a really good game, everybody's going to get some positive outcome from that. And if you pick out 3 players who you really want to work with, they'll get something extra this week, and then next week it might be you might have the same 1 of 3, and then two new ones, and then just move that week on week as you need to with your group. I mean, David, have you done your level 1, 2, 3?
2, level 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as an example, then, if you were to do a UEFA B, so your level 3, you start talking about priority players and supporting players. So it might be that you design a practice for whatever reason, and you've got a certain kind of game, and just to go through that internal thought process of yourself to think, well, who are the 3 most important players in my practice to get success tonight, and then that is your signpost who you should be spending more time with today. That's from a technical tactical perspective. Or if you flip it and you say, well, actually, who would be the 3 most important players to work with tonight because I really need to boost their confidence, or whatever it might be. So maybe it's just challenging yourself to think, right, who's integral to making this work.
Okay, great, thanks. And would you sort of like share that with the players as well in terms of what you're doing? So say this week I'm going to concentrate on 2 players, and then next week I might move that on to somebody else, or just do it naturally and it happens.
I think again it depends. It depends on your group and where they're at. If I was coaching, I'd probably not, because I would probably think about, well, if it wasn't me who's been picked, I might feel negatively about that. And actually, if you design a good game, everyone's going to get a return in it. Everyone's going to get something valuable. So yeah, I'd probably be a bit more stealth about that.
Great. Okay, thanks for that.
Thanks, David. Hello, Simon East.
Good morning. How are
Good
we?
morning. Good to see you, mate.
Good to be here.
Sam, just get you on. I see you got your video on now. Calling from, is it Beijing?
Yeah.
Good, mate. Good. How are you? You all right?
Yeah, I'm very well, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thanks, mate. Good to see you again. And I know you obviously responded to David as well. In terms of your experience in that situation.
Yeah, I mean, I just sort of reiterated what Tom said there in his response. I just think it sort of, for me and my sort of experience out here, I think it's more sort of what the players want. And obviously, if your practice like involves or needs to involve one player or a couple of players, and you sort of focus on them, but the sort of everyone else is engaged and things. I don't see what the problem is with that. And like I say, I think if your practice is engaging and you sort of focus on a couple of players that maybe need it a little bit more than some others do, then they're all going to learn in their own way, I think.
Tom?
Yeah, I think like we said already, every player or every person is at a different point when they come to training, and they might all need something a bit different from you as a coach. Maybe a question that not enough coaches ask is asking the kids, what would you like from me tonight? And some will probably just say, I just want you to leave me to it, let me play. and others might want something a bit more specific and a bit more technical. That answer is going to change.
Just a quick one in there. Something that I've sort of experienced more sort of being out here is like obviously I'm working with the foundation sort of players out here, and there's been times where I've maybe given them like a scenario, for example, like it's the Champions League and the Reds are 3-2 up and just 10 minutes to go or something along them lines, and a couple of the players have just turned around to me and said, why, like we don't want this challenge, we just want a normal game, we want the carry on as normal, we want the score to just be as it is, we don't want you to change it or anything. And literally for the last sort of 10 minutes or so, they just wanted a normal game. Where there's been some weeks where like you maybe playing like the game, like just a normal game, and
Sam, I think the premise of what you're saying though is absolutely right. Maybe sometimes as coaches we hinder by wanting to help, and we go in with loads of ideas and loads of games, but that sometimes isn't what the players need. The question I was going to ask back, Sam, or just ask to the group, is really, well, if you think about the type of coaching program that you run at your club or your organisation or wherever it is, and if you ask the players to design it, how different might it look? So almost, are we aware of the needs and the demands of the young people that we're working with, and have they got a voice in shaping the environment? Because I think if they haven't, then maybe we're missing an opportunity to helping involve them in that overall picture of what our coaching organisation looks like.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, Sam, thanks, mate. I'm sure we'll speak to you again before the end. Tom, I know you hang on. I've got HD here. So if you need to shoot off, mate.
I can stay about 5 more minutes, buddy, and then.
Brilliant stuff. Right, Steve has put around with the emphasis from more now on play, we need kind of players rather than concentrate on providing places where they can just play. Let's get a Steve in here. Get a Steve. Hello, mate. You saw about Cruyff and Ajax on the streets.
Yeah, no, I was just wondering what Tom's thoughts were on. Obviously, there's a lot more emphasis on play now, and the game for especially foundation that plays players is a lot different to what it was even a few years ago. And with sort of academies, you know, sort of younger and younger, do you feel that that's something that needs to be looked at in terms of should they just be out there playing now, you know, as opposed to being stockpiled, you know? I can understand why clubs are doing it because they don't want to miss out on a player. But is that the best thing for the kids?
What a controversial question it is. I mean, maybe a good question to ask is that children are probably ready for the academy. Is the academy ready for the children? Is probably something I would always think about. Yeah, loads of football clubs will get kids in as young as possible because they've identified something within them that they feel that they can help develop. But I think the research shows, and from experience as well, when you're working with young players in academy systems, there's so many environmental factors that have an impact on that experience. So it could be, I mean, I'll give you an example. Working at Arsenal, so I coached in their pre-academy for 3 years, and the environment there was good. But no matter who you are, when you're a 5 or 6 year old child going in there, and there's a huge Arsenal badge on the side of this massive training centre, all of a sudden it feels a bit different to just playing football. So I think there's lots of things that are considerations that would have an impact on the way that they might come and play. So I think as a coach, if you're working in that kind of environment, or if professional football clubs have that kind of environment, the more they can allow the players just to go and experiment stuff. Going back to the conversation earlier about 1v1s, 2v2s, 2v1s, small-sided things where they get lots of time on the ball and the opportunity just to have a go at stuff and express themselves, I think is important. Because let's face it, until someone's gone through puberty and come out the other side, we don't really know what we're left with in terms of an engine, if you like. You could be buying a lottery ticket. So I guess we spot potential in young players based on a whole range of things, but actually what that comes out as at the other side, well, we just don't know yet. And I think if somebody did know, they'd be a multi-millionaire. But I think it's just about having a few guiding principles about what spotting potential looks like, and then just giving them a nice environment to come and have a go at things and be stretched and challenged in a fun and creative way.
Yeah, yes, I think you're definitely right about the sort of spotting potential. You know, what does a talented 9-year-old mean? He's a talented 9-year-old. You know, it doesn't necessarily have a bearing on what he's going to be like the future. And obviously the stats back that up as well in terms of, you know, how many actually make it through way. So yeah, it's one of those things that we need more. You know, I'll be doing the best for those young kids who, like you're saying, they see that Arsenal badge or that QPR or Reading or whatever, and they think, and more importantly, the parents think that their son's made it, or you know, which isn't necessarily right.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the final thing I'll say is that I guess we've got to be, if we're working with young players in a environment that is about the trajectory players could go on, we have to think about them as people first. And the saying that I really like, that I think is so true, coaching people from the head down rather than the feet up. So yeah, develop them as people first, and the player within them will take care of itself.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. Just wish more had the same ideas.
Too easy then, Steve. Ethan, you got anything to add on that?
No, I think I agree with Tom that it has to be player centric. It has to be around the player's needs, and we're all different. It's you have to acknowledge it is a team game, but you've got a group of individuals, and they will all mature at different levels. Their understanding of the game will be different. Some are very technically good, but not very good with game management. So it's just timing, really, making sure you get it right. And what you don't want to do is ruin the experience for the young person too early as well. Because some players, you know, when you speak to them, academies weren't always the best experiences. So it's just about getting that, you know, getting the timing right of when they should be attending.
Cool, thanks, EC. Tom, you to shoot?
Yeah, I'm going to disappear now. So thanks, everyone. And
thanks for your time this morning, mate.
It's been a pleasure this morning. Cheers, bye. Cheers, everyone. Bye-bye.
Cheers, Tom.
Take care, mate. Elliot, you've responded to Asif there as well. Just get your take on it, mate. You said around the guy at the Belgium FA as well said the same thing around what Asif was saying there, and then they used to let our ex-players use play in the car park and coaches just watch.
Yeah, so I kind of completely agree with Asif. I think when you're going with comparing grassroots and academy, obviously they have the facilities and the kids are talented, but at the end of the day they are still children, so their needs in terms of what they can learn and what their sort of motives are for playing is the same. So wherever they are, you know, you may have a more talented group, you may be able to get a bit more out of them in terms of the quality of what they're doing, but the actual theory behind what you should be teaching them, it still should be fun. And it should be, you know, encouraging creativity. You're just doing it with a group of I'm not going to say more talented, because I don't think you can judge a player at that age, but maybe they're at a slightly more advanced stage for their age than, say, a grassroots player. But they, at the end of the day, they are still kids. They're there to have fun. They're only able to learn a few things at a time, and they just want to play. So it shouldn't change wherever you move, whether it's an academy or a grassroots team. And yeah, I've done some reading at Ajax. They should try and recreate that street footballer. sometimes they just let mixture of age groups just play their own games in a car park and let them do it. And that's at one of the best academies in the world. So, I mean, if they're doing it, then it's obviously a good method, because kids don't go out and play as much anymore. So if you can try and recreate that somehow, whether it's the first 10 minutes of your session or you have a player-led session once every 6-week block. But yeah, it's just something to think about.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I was watching. Have you seen Soccer Box with Gary Neville? And he did one with Wayne Rooney, and you know when Rooney scored that wonder goal against Arsenal, which sort of like put him to everyone's forefront. Like he went out that afternoon or that evening and played football with his mates down at youth club.
Yeah.
I just think that's just like you would never get that now.
No.
Yeah, Man United do say something else. You said. Easy. What's your thoughts on that? I know you've already touched on it, but around like what Ajax are doing there.
What Ajax are doing, obviously, they've been world leaders in terms of developing young players. That's clearly evident, isn't it? But I think there's some good examples. You know, Man United again, good examples. I think everybody has a slightly different take on it. For me, it's about if young people are enjoying the experience, they'll learn quicker. They'll embrace it quicker. So I think it is important to reflect on their needs. What do they want? And again, it's got to be centered around individuals. Why are they there? What experience are they looking for? Coming along, a lot of them, young people come along because they want to play with their mates. Simple as that. They might have aspirations to go on and be a professional footballer, but ultimately that's not what's driving them at that moment in time. So allow them to, mature at a level that's right for them. And I don't think there's any given, as we know, there's a lot of late maturers in life, players that come through late. And there's some examples out there of I know somebody, a young player, I'm not going to mention his name, but he went to an academy, didn't enjoy the experience and wanted to go back and play with his mates. He's now back playing professional football, so he felt that it was too pressurised for him at that moment in time. So I think the fact that he was able to step out of that and still get the support from his parents, and then when he felt he was ready to go back in there, is important. So, sometimes, when we're looking at talent idea, a lot of it's based around physicality and technical ability, and forgetting that, 70% of the game is psychological, and it's played up. It's
patience as well, I think. There's no
unbelievably being patient, and not trying to, herd people through and force feed them because you're looking for that great bit of talent. Let people develop at their own rate. More importantly, let them enjoy the game. That's what it's there for.
Absolutely, yeah.
Asif, sorry, mate, I'm going to mute you again. Does Man United do something similar? Call it the cage? What's that?
Yeah, I'm sure I heard something about, where when Elliot was saying about Ajax having this system where they go to the car park and play, and I think United have something. And again, it's that they mix ages together, and it's just a chance for them to express themselves and have to come up with different against different challenges to their sort of club environment. So yeah, definitely. I think I was reading something the other day about AZ Alkmaar. I think in the academy now they've got like a beach pitch, concrete pitch. They've got a few different offices and they use different sized balls and just to mix it up a bit, change it up and give different things.
That's interesting, isn't it? I suppose it's no coincidence that Man United and Ajax both have had fantastic youth setups as well, academies throughout decades. So it's interesting. I just want to get Sam in here because obviously, you were in Beijing. Are you in the grassroots game or are you in academies?
Yeah, in the grassroots game, it's sort of totally different to how obviously things are run in the UK or in Europe. Within the Chinese sort of foundation grassroots setup, there's no. I think Beijing Guan, who's like the top sort of team in Beijing, I think they only start at around U15. So like anything below U15, there's not a sort of pathway for players to go on. Or like they might have sort of like feeder teams, but they're not sort of recognised by the club, if that makes sense. So there's not really a sort of a passion to make it. Obviously, they all like playing with the friends and all play for the right reasons. But there's not to try and find a pathway for them to get sort of into the professional environment or into academies if that's what they want to go to. It's very, very difficult. So it's sort of completely different to how sort of things are run in the UK and Europe and things. And there's less sort of, especially I think within the philosophy and the mindset of coaches out here, it's very sort of more sort of regimented and very more coach centered. So players have to do things at certain times in the game. They're not allowed sort of any freedom. They must pass the ball as soon as they get it. The centre half must boot it away as soon as he gets the ball, stuff like that. And obviously, if the player is, let's say, the centre half took too long on the ball and got tackled and things, and that the coaches will be absolutely like rollicking them on the sidelines and things. And obviously, when we're trying to do things the European way and the English FA way in terms of like creativity and letting them come up with their own games and things like their own challenges and stuff, it's very much sort of, I've never thought of that, and like, why is that important, and why is that better than telling them what to do and things. So it's all sort of more educating them, I think. So
what age do you work with?
So I work with we start at like three or four, and we work right through to 18, 19-year-olds. So obviously a big spectrum. But like it's hard because we're all sort of made up of international coaches from like the UK and Irish. So obviously we're doing things the way that we do back home, and if one of our sort of older players does and has been with us for a number of seasons, has got used to sort of how we coach and things. Obviously, when they go to the maybe the Chinese sort of professional academies, when they get a little bit older, their experience is completely different because their coaches don't have the same philosophy as us. So more often than not, they'll go there for a little bit, hate it because they hate being told what to do, they hate being screamed at, and then within a month they're back with us again, because they like the way that, or they're used to the way of the freedom and things like that. So it's interesting. It's like a sort of an eye opener. But they are like I mentioned last week, they are like more leaning towards like the DNA and things. But I guess they're not doing it because they're wrong. I think they're just doing it because they haven't been educated, if that makes sense. They've not been educated enough of the way that we do things and why it's the right way. So it is really interesting, really, to sort of see how things work over here and the pathway for players and things.
What qualification? Oh, sorry, go on, Steve.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I think we touched on it last week. Do you think a lot of that is just to do with the culture of, obviously, if you've got a communist country, which is very, a lot of the aspects of your life are dictated to you.
Yeah.
So do you think that plays a massive part in the way they understand, that
Definitely.
football?
I think sort of in terms of the coaching, the coaches, especially the Chinese coaches, like you say, it's very much dictatorship. You get told something that I've learned being out here as well. You get told from your seniors. So obviously, like players will listen to the coaches because they have to respect the elders. You have to respect those above you, those higher than you, etc., etc. So I think it definitely is a culture a culture aspect in terms of the way that they have been, or the way that the coaching licenses and the coach education out here is taught. You get taught by a more senior coach. You get educated by a more sort of qualified coach, and that's how you must coach. But again, I do think that's a major part. But again, I also think that they haven't been sort of educated on any other ways. Like I said, they haven't been they're not educated enough on why people we do things the way we do it. And when they are educated about that, then they really you see them really getting on board with it and that. So I guess it'll just take time for them to sort of get on board. But obviously it will be sort of difficult because of the way that the mentality and the culture is out here.
Interesting, yeah.
Cool. Sam, just quickly, what qualification are you?
I'm level 2. Hoping to do my B license soon. But I'm obviously with me being out here, it's obviously quite difficult to do one back in the UK. But but obviously definitely open to keeping progressing and learning. So
Yeah, definitely, mate. That's good. Keep up the good work you're doing out there, mate.
Yeah, cheers. Thank you.
So Tony Privet asking Mr. East a question, and I saw when the question came in, he shook his head. So those you can't see, he said, Simon, you've worked in football for many years as a head coach. You have no doubt had numerous assistant coaches that have worked closely with you. What qualities do you feel make a good assistant?
Yeah, thanks, Rich. I'm reading it. Yeah, certainly bundles of enthusiasm, an understanding of working with players at that level, young players, their needs. Tony's talking about really, I predominantly have worked with 16 to 19-year-olds and players that have been released from academies and released for a variety of reasons. Some have been told they're too small, not quite ready, etc., etc. And like many educational schemes out there, we set up one with Hazy Edding when they were in the conference, which we had some really good players come forward, came through the systems released by Brentford and boys coming out of London. And in fact, we had about 20 players return back to the professional game through that link. So pretty good, really. But I think first and foremost, somebody who understood where these players were coming from, because young players that release from professional clubs, it's almost like a bereavement. They've put their last 5, 6, 7, 8 years of their life on hold, and it's all gone up in smoke. But making them realise that there's other avenues, there's other ways of getting back into football. I know you know, Rich, but I'm also England College's national coach, so we get to work with players all over the country. Nick Pope would be a prime example of somebody who was released and came back through the college systems, and he's done pretty well. He's doing okay now, to say the least. And a lot of players are same. So, clubs have released players that probably they shouldn't have released for whatever reason. And sometimes I feel it's just that they're not quite ready for that experience at this moment in time. And take the pressure off of them, putting them in an environment and saying to them, look, come back, come and join us, have some fun, get back to doing what you're doing well. That pressure of build up of, will I get a scholarship, won't I get a scholarship? They're under tremendous pressure, these young people. And I think certainly the players that I've dealt with, a lot of them are still playing in the professional game, and they'll all say the same thing. That experience of having to go and play in grassroots football and go down a level and then go back up again has held them in good stead. Because some of those dark nights when you're playing at, Flatwell Heath or something like that, nothing wrong with Flatwell Heath, but, or driving on a bus to go, 2 hours and then you've got to go to work the next day. It gives you a grounding, it gives you an experience. And in terms to coaching levels, looking for somebody really who, like I say, has got a passion, has got an empathy with those young people. Wants your job really as well. You want players that are looking to progress in the game. I prefer to look at young, enthusiastic coaches that are coming through because they're tomorrow's future, and if you can give them an opportunity and help them on the ladder, that's great. And of course, Tony was my assistant at Hayes, so maybe that's why the question was. But hey, what can I say? Couldn't have had a better assistant.
That was my next question. How was Tony as an assistant? Was he good?
Oh, he was good. Yeah, he was good. He's good, but he played as well. Tony's a prime example of somebody who played for me when he was 16. He came as a student, and he's now gone on to to do great things. He's a coach educator, quality lecturer, and has a great understanding of the football world as well. And what can I say really without bigging him up too much?
Well, apparently he has no microphone, so he can't repeat anything. So
that's good, mate. He'll be typing something up in a minute, don't worry.
Just touching on you and those who don't know, you played to a pretty decent level in South East.
Yeah, not many games. I've coached at a better level.
As a player, what was your experience? Although going back a few years.
Oh, God, we are going back a few years. I think the games have changed. Although I was lucky. Towards the end of I wish I'd have done my coaching badges earlier because certainly without a shadow of a doubt, the younger to do them, the more you understand the game. You start to link in and relate to the coach. You understand why they're asking you to make those type of runs. And I think, I originally did my coaching badges because I wanted to go out to America and coach. And no other reason really. But once I started doing them, it engaged me in realizing that this is a great way to understand the game. So, having, I know River was talking about his prelim the other day, and my microphone won't work. Good job, because I did mine in 1982. So that's a long time ago, before people were born. But
including me.
Yeah, but I became a better player after I'd done my coaching badges, and I probably was a better player the latter half of my career than I was at the beginning of it. Because I was just doing things, for the sake of them, not really how I was doing it. And, you get into arguments with a coach and stuff like that. So I think it's important that you, can understand the game. And I would recommend to any young coach, get on your coaching badges and get out there and learn the game as much as you can. Because it certainly helped me. I mean, I was lucky because when I went to Wickham, really, I went as a player coach more than anything. But I was at the end of my career, but the coaching took off really, and I got to work with one of the best coaches in the area, a guy called Jim Kelman, and he was playing 3 at the back in the late 80s, early 90s, and he was way ahead of his time. So fortunate enough to work alongside a coach of that quality, and I know Rivo was saying, and Mitch said they both did their prelims with Jim. And I got to work with him, and we're still good friends, 40 odd years down the line. So it's been a valuable experience. And I think, for any young coach, get out there and watch other coaches work, go and learn. And if you can get to work with somebody, even if it's on a voluntary basis, that's how you learn. Go mixing with better people. And I'm sure all those coaches that, work with me along with England colleges, getting to work with good players is a fantastic experience. The better the players, it's great working with youngsters. It's great at grassroots, but it's also nice to work with players that are really hungry and are passionate and want to try and get back into the professional game.
No, definitely, mate. It's the second that still playing and learning stuff from coaching. I remember I didn't play very good level at all, but I remember I did level 2 with Ian Bateman, and he's now in futsal. But he says, from day one, I remember yesterday, this was 6-7 years ago, and he said, you'll never watch, after this, you'll never watch football the same ever again. A lot of you are, and I haven't. But so my understanding of the game was a lot better. Elliot, you still playing decent level, aren't you?
I'm playing for Wokingham and Embrook, sort of step 5, step 6. Yeah, so even though obviously when I did my level 2, I was learning how to progress my coaching. When I was doing the sessions, for example, I did one of Eastie sessions, I did one of Mick Lewin sessions, and as a player, even though I was learning how to coach, I was actually learning stuff that I've never been taught before as well. So it's actually it's helped me to understand the game as a coach, but it helps you as a player as well. So if you are a young player and don't just think, oh, I'm going to wait till I finish playing. If you can do a level 1 and level 2, it might actually help you as a player as well.
Yeah, definitely. And there's a lot of these like football academies, like I know Beaconsfield Town Academy, are doing BTEC and also doing like a level 1 as well. And there's other academies that are doing that in the area, I think, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. I have to say again, these are set up a long way back, and there was I was on the first steering committee to set this league up, which was England Colleges National League. There's about 24 teams across the country, and one of our colleagues in education had written a paper on what was happening to players that had been released from the professional game. So the idea was that colleges would set up these academies within the colleges and link with good non-league clubs, and that's what's happened to an extent. I'd have to say I think the market's been flooded, and I think there's some good schemes out there, but I also think there's some not so very good schemes out there. But without a shadow of a doubt, it's acted as a vehicle to help young players who have been released from the professional game to go back into the game, or at least play at a good level of football. Because some of those boys, they'll almost be training full time. I say that they'll be training maybe 2, 3, 4 mornings a week, and then doing their education in the afternoons. So they're certainly getting exposed to a lot of football. And obviously, if that's a good experience and the coaching is good, it can only escalate their learning, without a shadow of a doubt. And there are some, like I say, there are some good schemes out there, and there's some that are not so good. But that's like any walk of life. Yeah. But I think it's really important that young players have an opportunity. Just because you're released at 16, it doesn't mean to say it's the end of the road. I mean, it makes it a little bit more challenging, a bit more difficult, but certainly if you can get some experience of playing in, non-league football and playing against men, it's not always the physicality of playing against men, and some of the youngsters are ready for that. It's that psychological side. Their experience sometimes keeps them a step ahead of what you're thinking, and you need to learn that, and that's really important. So, players who can get with a good non-league club where there's a good non-league manager, that can escalate their learning, And we tend to find the players that have come and play with England colleges, the ones that are playing at non-league level already are certainly better players when it comes to the international stage. They're just a little bit more streetwise and able to cope with the demands of stepping up to that level, the next level of football.
Interesting. Just quickly, I know that you finished, and it's great to speak to you guys again today. I know this was mentioned the other day, and I can't remember who mentioned it, but around, what's your opinion, Lucy, around those who do go into non-league and still make it late in life? So like Jamie Vardy's obviously a high-profile one. I think Ian Wright was 24.
Yeah, he was.
Before he made it. So do you think that will continue, die out, or just here or there kind of thing?
Yeah, I think it will continue. I think there's players out there. Who have been missed, and I think for whatever reasons, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's down to environment they're in. Sometimes it's down to circumstances. I had a player come to play with me, and he'd been at Reading. I'm not going to mention his name, but from the age of 9 to the age of 16, his parents had never seen him play at Reading once. He either caught the bus there, or he'd get picked up at the train station or whatever. He'd get a lift there. So his parents had never been able to see him due to circumstances. So sometimes that social support, parental support, other adults working with is not there. So everything has to click together, and I think sometimes players deal with that at different levels. And certainly when he came to play with us at 16, he was down a little bit, but he picked himself up quickly, and he's playing a good level of non-league football now. And he didn't give it up. The sad thing is that I think it's about 1 in 4 by the age of 25 are not playing football at all that have been at academies. Right. That's a lot, isn't it? That's a high schedule of players that have just dropped out because they're totally disillusioned about the game. So I think it's important that young players are picked up and helped along the way. There is a future, there is a life after. And I always say to players, look, most important thing, you don't always need to focus on being a professional. Focus on being the best you can. That's really important. When your career's over, you can put your hand on your heart and say, I did the best I could. That was the best level I was ever going to play at. And there's a lot of players who won't be able to say that because they've given up the challenge. Because that's what it is. It's a challenge. It's a challenge, isn't it? It doesn't matter when you get there. You're on different levels. If you get there when you're 21, great. If you get there when you're 24, great. But you've got to keep pushing yourself to meet those targets. And they're your targets. You've got to set those for yourself. You've got to set those targets. You've got to, and I believe. Sorry, Rich.
No. I was just saying, there's a player at Maidenhead who recently got signed for Wolves, didn't he?
Yeah.
Centre back.
Yeah, but again, I think he was on a scheme at Berkshire Agricultural College, so I think they link him with Maidenhead. So again, he would have been exposed to some good coaching. They've got a couple of coach educators down there, so I'm sure they would have provided a good experience for him. And again, he gets to play in the first team. Somebody comes and sees him, they realise he can play at that level, and it's not such a big step up then. They realise there's somebody at 17, 18 who's already playing men's football.
He's right, futsal player. Max Kilman, there you go, cheers, gents. Plays futsal for England as well. He's only 2021 now, and he's playing, obviously this happened, he was playing in the Europa League games and Premier League, so.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, gents, I don't want to take any more of your time up, but if you do have a question, you can just ask it as I wrap up. But yeah, it's good to see you again. Thanks to the two people that called in from China. Thanks for everyone again. I won't put the slides back on, but yeah, next week we've got Emerson Balls joining us live at 7 o'clock to go through his the Wigan versus Man City game, so he'll be able to.
That'll be good.
Insight. That will be good. And then we've got a podcast recording with Dennis Wise on the Wednesday. So on Twitter, you've got an opportunity to ask a question, Dennis. So I'm sure there'll be a few. So other than that, though, look after yourself. Stay safe. You enjoy the weather from your gardens if you're lucky to do so. But yeah, thanks again, guys. Cheers, EC, for your help as well.
Always a pleasure, Rich. Good to see you again.
Right.
We'll speak soon, I'm sure. Take care.
Happy Easter as well. Take care.
Yeah, to you as well, mate. Look after yourself.
Cheers, mate.